What do the Packers do this offseason? You know, I think for them, they need a lot of need a lot of things because Jair Alexander sounds like he might not be back.
Right.
You're going to need a corner. You're going to need. I love Edgerrin Cooper. I think you're going to need another pass rusher.
Yeah.
You know, offensively, you're close. You really are. I think it's the development of the quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at that division now, you've got a defensive coordinator who did a nice job this year, totally turned that unit around. And ultimately, when you look around, you've got uncertainty in Chicago. You have quarterback uncertainty a little bit in Minnesota because, you know, hey, they've got multiple options, but you don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah.
And in Detroit, you might lose both the coordinators. So all is not lost in Green Bay.
Well,
I mean, like they're on the right track. If you'd have told a Packers fan when Rodgers left, you don't tell the Packers fan what it looks like. You tell them how many games you're going over the next couple of years. You're going to the playoffs. You're going to be, you know, X, Y, Z. I think that Packers fan would be okay with that.
Yeah.
With the departure.
I think you said it though. Like, I like Jordan Love a lot. I think he's a really good player, and I've been high on him. Disappointed with his game on Sunday. Obviously, I'm an Eagles fan, especially when I'm there for the game, wearing my fucking Super Bowl ring. But like looking forward, I feel like Jordan Love is like, when is he going to take that step? It's like kind of people talk about that with Justin Herbert a lot. Like he loses, you know, in spectacular fashion, throws those interceptions. It's like it's kind of the same thing with Jordan Love. Like he's a very talented player. You know, he's going to be the guy for the organization here going forward. And it's like, you just want him to take that next step. And I don't know. I feel like there's a comparison to be made between Justin Herbert
They had
and
every
Love.
opportunity to beat Detroit beat San Francisco last year on the road.
Yeah.
And, you know, if he's healthy this year, I think, you know, that's even closer of a game. I'm not going to say the sky's falling for him. If I'm a Packers fan, I don't
think it's falling. I'm just ready for him to kind of elevate his game.
No question. But you know how many of these great quarterbacks you're waiting for them to put their first big postseason run together? Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about one that we all think is very talented in LA. Mm-hmm. And, you know, obviously the circumstance is a little bit different, but that was terrible. You know, and you've got guys who are multiple-time MVPs, probably another MVP this year with Lamar. Yep. If I'm reading the tea leaves.
We'll see how the game goes next week.
No, but I really do think when do the votes get cast for that?
That's a good question.
Because the guys that vote on the AP vote on MVP. And the All-Pro team. Yeah. All-Pro team. Sorry, not Associated Press. The All-Pro team. And Lamar was first team. And Josh was second. Yeah, so, but my point is, a guy might be a multiple-time MVP guy, but he hasn't had his great playoff run yet. Yeah. So, you know, the playoffs are a different ball game, and you know, it's not good enough to just be in the dance. But if you're some of these teams, just being in the dance feels good, right? And I think Green Bay,
like the Broncos,
Broncos. I think Broncos fans are probably walking out of yesterday like, "Hey, we're fine."
It's a moral victory.
Pretty good.
Now, 2 more appearances next year. 1 appearance where he doesn't play well or something like that. We start talking about this sort of stuff. So
the MVPs voted at the end of this regular season before the playoffs. So it's already.
I think it's going to be Lamar. I mean, listen, I personally think Josh is the best quarterback on the planet right now. I think he just edges Lamar out, but Lamar's numbers, you can't argue.
Yeah, individually.
Everything's not numbers.
Yeah.
No, part of it for me, I'll admit, is the postseason. That's part of it for me. You know, that's why I generally trust Josh. And I think like yesterday was a continuation of that. We'll talk about that game in a minute, but they lean on the run game a lot, but he made the plays he had to make. Both those quarterbacks have a lot of narratives riding on their runs here. Yeah. And this week's going to be a monster game.
Huge.
Josh and Lamar.
Huge.
And again, I want to make myself perfectly clear. If Lamar wins the MVP, which I think he will, you ain't going to hear an argument from me.
Yeah.
It's fair.
I agree.
That's fair.
He's a fucking beast, dude.
Lamar. He's unbelievable.
For the Packers, real fast, what they should do this offseason, would it be beneficial for them to go after a number one, a true number one wide receiver?
Listen, I've been waiting for Dobbs to become that guy, and he showed flashes, but I think eventually you're going to need a guy outside who's like a different.
I think
Higgins is about to make so much money.
Tyreek.
There's so many plays.
No, I like T. Higgins in LA.
You said Tyreek. Now, if you'll remember last year,
Tyreek's not going to fucking Green Bay though.
He can't play in the cold.
He played in Kansas City.
Yeah.
That is true.
Well, like, can you picture?
That was a few years ago.
I cannot picture Tyreek in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I just can't do it. There's some part of me that
the case for Tyreek in Green Bay is this: they've already got a guy they run a ton of cheat motion with.
Yeah, you
get two of those motherfuckers running across the field.
Yeah,
and then you talk about the run game that comes off it and the deep shots.
Right.
I understand that. When you tell a Dolphins fan they couldn't get him deep ball, they throw a bunch of numbers at you. Ooh, numbers. Let's watch the film and watch all the plays that are left on the field and plays that he has to go out of his way to make spectacular catches because the ball's underthrown and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Love's got a big league arm, okay? Yeah. So, when you talk about Tyreek, once you get over the quitting on your team thing, which I contended the other day, that who gives a fuck, because ultimately the market's not gonna give a fuck.
The market won't give. I give a fuck.
I give a fuck too.
Yeah.
But what are we talking about his viability going forward? People are talking about
he's
who wants to have
he is a
Tyreek
great
on the
player.
Team?
Who wants to have everybody, literally everybody.
Everybody.
And you know how fast every single teammate is going to get over that on his new team? The moment he catches a deep ball and houses it, they'll be like, all right, we're good.
That's the point.
Great teammate right here.
That's the point.
Yeah. Would I personally ever have done that? No. Was I ever in a position to have done that based on my talent? Fuck no.
No. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. If you do what you're able to do as a player, and
I just don't think Tyreek is going to end up in Green Bay. I just don't. I think that's a great.
I think you never know. But the whole conversation is, do they
Green Bay needs a guy like that?
Probably.
Yeah. Coming into the season, it was man, all these good receivers. Who is the number one in Green Bay? But it feels like now getting through the season, it's do you have one?
It's a spin zone thing where in the beginning you spin it to being well, we don't have a number one. That's great.
Right.
But you also don't have a truly special quarterback.
Right.
And I think Jordan's really good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't pay him that money.
But we've been talking
about
Josh
Allen.
He's been up and down. Right.
Who's their number one?
They don't need one right
now.
Joe
Brady.
100%. Yeah.
Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And be the same thing with Lamar. It's Zay's out in that game. Well, okay, we'll get the ball to tight end. We'll get the ball to Bateman. And I'll run the ball 10 times in the first half, and we'll soften you up and bludgeon you to death with Derrick Henry.
Right.
In an offense like Green Bay's, they got a great running
Godwin. Back, I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the free agent wide receivers. Chris Godwin could be a great fit in.
But again, he's not a number one at this stage. And he's never really been a number one.
I mean,
not in
he's a 1B, but yeah, I just love.
You already got a guy in the slot who to me is a number one, but he's a slot guy.
And Chris is coming off an injury, but
So I don't know. Packers need a lot.
Yeah. Before we move on to,
these teams need more than you think at the end of the season when you're damn, okay, there are some holes you got to fill.
Yeah.